you take responsibility for your health, you enjoy it so much more. When you create it and it's your creation, that's what I find with the kids in my classes. They'll try all kinds of new things because it's their own creation. And that's so much better than eating something at the school or from a concession stand.
On the show now is Miss Lisa Jendza. Miss Jendza, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm super excited to talk to you today about eating healthier and how that can translate into having better success in entrepreneurship and life.
Well, that makes my heart happy because that's really my mission and my purpose. And I love fueling young entrepreneurs. It's amazing to me that you have this show. I'm so impressed and happy to be here.
Thank you so much. That warms my heart. But yeah, we'll get right into it. So, Ms. Jendza, you started in the corporate world, right? You worked there for years, and obviously you're doing pretty well. Why did you decide to kind of leave all that behind and go into and pursue health and food science?
Well, I had a health crisis. So that's the simple answer. At 36 years old, I had type 2 diabetes, fibromyalgia. I had high triglycerides and really was not in good health. I had brain fog and lethargy, and I was suffering from anxiety and depression. And all of those I found were a result of diet and lifestyle. So it was a high stress job. I wasn't sleeping well. I worked swing shift. I was on call 24/7. And so that can raise cortisol levels. So stress and then eating out a lot because of the hours I was working all contributed to a health crisis. So that's the simple answer. But beyond the health crisis, Ben, there was kind of an awakening. I woke up to there being more to life than what I was doing in corporate America. And for many years, I felt it was very important. I was building General Motors networks. I was a network operations manager and I was building things. And I think many of us just want to see that we're creating something. And that was very fulfilling. Um, However, it reaches a point when you realize you're chasing a carrot. And for many people in corporate America, we're always chasing the next promotion or the bigger cube or the status. And then after the health crisis, I just realized none of that was that important.
Right. And as a kid, young kid, that always seems there's always something better, and realizing that that there is being happy where you are is so much more important. So you decide to you've been working all these years in a high stress, not the best quality of life in terms of your health, and now you're seeing all that kind of being piled up, and you decide to enter health and food science. Why, how, and as well, how did you learn all these new things? Did you go back to school? Did you read a ton of books?
It was a ton of books and conferences and seminars. I looked into a number of different college programs, but did not feel that they were teaching what I wanted to learn. I had a sense that the reason that we were seeing a number of health issues in the world is because of what the medical profession has been teaching. And so I wanted to see what other information there was out there. Being a very curious person and being maybe a little bit of a rebel at heart, I did a lot of conferences, seminars, and programs, but not necessarily another college degree. All of my degrees, I have multiple, they're all in business management and marketing. So all of my health coaching information came post college through independent studies.
Right. We had a sleep doctor named Devin Burke on the show, and he was literally talking about everything he learned about sleep just came out of books, came out of learning about it on YouTube, reading textbooks. And I think that's kind of a new thing now, is that you don't have to go back 4 years and you get a college degree. You can just read a ton of books and get all this knowledge online. And going into learning about all these type of things, what was your intention? Was it to better your own health, become a sleep coach, or not sleep coach, health coach?
Yeah, so it started with my own health journey. And so I needed to uncover what was going on. And as I started to research and discovered that there were more than 80,000 registered chemicals in use in the United States, that the average person is putting more than 400 chemicals on or in their body by the time they have their first coffee every day, I started looking at why and how are we seeing so much chronic illness. So I had joint pain and lethargy and brain fog at a pretty young age of 36, and I knew I wasn't alone. And the more I uncovered, the more curious I became. So I left corporate and I bought a wellness spa where I started teaching people. So that was 2008. I started teaching detoxification treatments, um, how the lymphatic system works, mineral body wraps, sauna therapy. But you can't really talk about detoxification without addressing nutrition. We have to talk about what we're putting in our body and on our body, because our skin is our largest organ. So what we put on our skin goes directly into our bloodstream. So I became passionate about teaching people because my clients coming in had very similar symptoms: the 3 p.m. slump, the brain fog, lethargy, fatigue. It seemed like about one in every three of my clients were on anti anxiety pills or antidepressants. About one in every five were on something for blood sugar like metformin. And I've been watching those numbers increase where we have more and more people suffering from mental, I don't even want to call it mental illness, but definitely anxiety and depression and type 2 diabetes. And those can be easily fixed with change in diet. So my passion just grew after starting with myself and my own health and then starting to coach others.
When these people were coming in who were similar to you at the time in this type of symptoms like diabetes, um, depression, these type of symptoms, after working with them, what did you kind of conclude? What was the biggest cause? Was it stress? Was it eating? Was it bad habits like in sleep?
People were coming to me because I was doing mineral body wraps, and they felt a sense that they needed to detoxify. And the mineral body wraps helped to restore and replenish minerals in their body as well. And so I wish I could say that there was one single, silver bullet. I believe that we're depleted from our minerals because our soil is depleted, and it comes down to lack of nutrient dense food. So when we're putting fuel in our body that doesn't have the right constituents, and the analogy is always the easiest one. If you put water in your gas tank in your car won't drive more than a block. But yet we put empty calories in our body. So we have to imagine that that is like putting water in our gasoline tank. There's no nutrients there for our body, compounded with the amount of chemicals in use in our society. We're becoming too toxic. Our body naturally detoxifies. So no one or nothing can detoxify you. Your body detoxifies itself, but it has to be given the right environment. And I caution against like weekend detox kits, because that can do more harm than good. That can actually put more stress and pressure on a stressed out body. So it really takes an understanding of how does your body detoxify and how can you support that process. You can imagine that we're like a pail and it's being filled up with chemicals, and at some point it overflows because our body just can't get the chemicals out. We actually need the nutrients in the food to help our body open up the detox pathways. So we just compound it by putting in food that's not nutrient dense. Now our body can't perform detoxification functions. So it really comes down to both of those things. It's we're too toxic and we're not getting enough nutrients.
And it seems weird that we see signs that say, this is toxic chemicals. We see, um, we hear a lot about, pesticides and how they're terrible. And, but yet we think these things and are still putting non-organic food, putting these type of chemicals still in our body. And a lot of that comes down to just what do you think that comes down to? Is it misinformation about what these type of things are? Is it time, not having enough time to eat properly?
I think there's a lot of confusion. So this is where you'll make me cry because my heart breaks because we see the toxic chemical sign symbol, on like our household cleaners or on a bottle of Roundup. So I ask my students, would you cook dinner tonight, go out to the garage, get the Roundup, bring it in, and spray it on your dinner plate? No, no, nobody would do that. But we think that because we can't see it, that it's really not there. And what's unfortunate, Ben, is that our food has all of these chemicals in it, flavors, flavors and colors. Flavoring has come a long way to enhance flavors to make people want to eat more, but those are all chemicals. And so that should have that toxic symbol on the box of the food. That's going to be up to your generation because my generation hasn't done a very good job of putting warning labels on or stopping this. And this is all a direct result, I hate to say it, of capitalism. It is about greed and the large corporations. They are connected to the seed production, so they've genetically modified the seeds. So Dr. Vandana Shiva has been working on seed freedom. She's an amazing woman. Dr. Zach Bush has been working on soil health. At the current rate, the current state of our soil, we have less than 60 harvests left on this planet. Yeah. So these are really big issues. And I start kind of in the kitchen. I meet people in the kitchen and show them how to eat healthier, but we have to go all the way back to see where is the money going. So if the money is in the seeds and it's in the farmland and it's in the food products, it's the same corporations that own the seed and own the food product, and they're now buying up all of the farmland. So he who controls the food controls the people.
I totally agree with that. And it is, a result of just trying to make more money and then putting that first and then putting the health of billions of people second, which I don't think is right at all. And now I want to touch on more of the aspect in actionable advice for all the kid entrepreneurs listening. So, first of all, everyone listening here, or most of the people listening, are kid or teen entrepreneurs, and they're trying to achieve, amazing things like starting a company, whether it's a business, you name it. And how is their personal success affected by their health, specifically what they put into their body?
Well, your health is your greatest wealth. And that saying carries so much meaning because the number one cause of bankruptcy, at least the last I checked, is having a health crisis. Um, so if you get sick, you can't function. So you can't run a company, you can't go to work, you will lose your edge if you lose your health. So your health is your superpower. So what we put in and on our body, not just in our body, but also on our body, will either contribute to our health or will detract from our health. So everything that we use, we need to be thinking, is this contributing to my success or taking away from my success? Um, when we stay in a healthy state, we are more likely to achieve the other things that we want to achieve. But, like money without health is nothing. You can't even enjoy your money. So take it from me at this age. Health comes first. Prioritize your health, your self care routine, and prioritize healthy food. Healthy food might seem more expensive. I do want to say this, Ben. For a lot of people, they'll say, oh, it's too expensive to eat healthy. But when we're eating healthy and our body is getting proper nutrients, we don't require as much food. So we eat less. So overall, you won't spend more. You will actually spend less. When we're eating a lot of the cheap food, they're empty calories. So we tend to be hungry more frequently.
I love that saying about how what your body, what you put on your body, what you put in your body, that has a huge effect because that's and there's also that saying, what's it? It's what you eat is who you are, or something like that. And I didn't know about that fact, but that makes sense now that eating healthy, while it kind of may seem more expensive, it one, it will make you eat less, but then also two, give you the power to go and make that money back multiple times over. And a big reason why teens don't eat the healthiest foods is time. If you're running out the door and you have to grab a quick sugary granola bar, or a bag of chips, or fast food. So what are the short-term effects to eating things like granola bars, eating McDonald's every day?
Yeah, so you're going to have a lower IQ. We already know that wheat flour that uses bromine as an anti caking agent lowers IQ by 10 to 15 points. So now you've got a lower IQ immediately. If you're eating a lot of grains, especially grains sprayed with glyphosate, you're going to be more likely to have leaky gut, which our immune system starts in our gut. Glyphosate, by the way, which we've all heard of Roundup and glyphosate, is an antibiotic. So, what it does is it kills the good bacteria in our gut. So, it's killing off our immune system in addition to the other damage it does to the gut lining. Processed foods also have something in them. A lot of processed wheat products have something called ADA, which is a plasticizer that our body doesn't know what to do with. Things that have trans fat is hydrogenated oils. Our body doesn't know what to do with that either. That was man made in the 70s or 80s. So, what happens is our body slows down and we don't realize it because this is an amazing self healing organism. And you're like, go, go, go. Okay, maybe I'm a little bit more tired today, but I still got through and I made it and I did my practice and my lessons and my homework. But you don't realize that little by little, what has really happened to us as a society is we don't even know how good we can feel. This has become the new normal, um, but it's common, not normal. It's common for people to feel sluggish. The American way is to be pretty sluggish, but that's not normal. So when we make our own granola bars, so in my cooking classes, I always start every semester, we do different granola bars because that's the number one thing people grab and go. I would challenge all of your listeners, Ben, to think not only about the amount of bars that we eat, but the amount of wrappers we throw away. And if you just made a big tray of granola bars yourself at home, you wouldn't have all of those wrappers. So we take that into account as well in my cooking classes. And I teach you how to make all different variations of protein bars and granola bars so that you never run out of ideas. And it doesn't take long, like 10 or 15 minutes on a weekend. You make your bars for the week, you make a whole tray of them. So meal prepping is really important. I understand not having time. That's why we have to meal prep.
Yep, I started meal prepping like 2 weeks ago, and I made every single week. I made energy balls with raw peanut butter, things like kale salad for lunch, and it really does affect how your day goes. You feel better, you feel lighter, you feel taller, you feel smarter, and it makes a huge impact.
Yes. Yes. I love that you're doing that.
And it's amazing. It's changed my life. And a lot of times, what kids eat is a factor of what their parents kind of raise them and how what they tell them to eat. And so a lot of parents are busy and they don't have, even on a Sunday to do meal prep. But kids want to be healthier, what can they tell their parents, tonight or even right now about how what's the easiest ways they can talk to their parents about helping them eat better?
Yeah. What a great question. I'm so glad you brought that up. So, so Ben, I always say this is a judgment-free zone. I never judge any parents because we all do the best that we can. And I was very busy and stressed out when my kids were younger. Um, so when we know better, we do better. Maya Angelou was the first one to say that. So why I love to teach is because I have a great understanding of what it's like to try to be a working mom and raise kids. And that's why I started offering the kids classes. The kids want to be healthy, and now they can work with their parents. So when you say, what can they say to their parents? The cooking classes that I have include all of the health coaching and nutrition type information so that you're not just learning how to make the granola bars, you're actually learning all your different options and then what ingredients we use and where I get it. So I share all of that in the videos because often the parents will say, where do I find this? Or I didn't even know this. So my videos are all suitable for the whole family, which is awesome. The other thing that I would tell your listeners to share with their parents is to not use food as reward or punishment. Food was never meant to be a reward for something good or a punishment for something bad. And we typically do that at a very young age. We tell you clean your room and then you can have an ice cream sundae or and when we do that we actually set up really bad habits for you for life. So then at my age people are still eating because they had eating ice cream because they had a good day or eating ice cream because they had a bad day, and then they end up in a program like sugaraddiction.com. So we don't want to use food as reward and punishment.
That's super important. I've heard that so many times. Like you have to clean your room and then you can come to dinner. Not to me, but friends or other people that I know who've experienced that. And that makes sense because food isn't something that's it's supposed to be something that is a habit, something that you eat every day. It's what keeps you, filled up. It should not definitely be used for as a punishment or a reward. And a big part of eating healthy with kids is that healthy food doesn't always taste the best. Like I love kale, but 80 to 90% of my friends or family hate kale. And so how can we get kids to like eating and making healthy food when they might not always like how that food tastes?
Well, in my classes, I have actually found that when they make the food themselves, they're more likely to eat it and enjoy it because it's their own creation. And I'll often take something like kale or sweet potatoes or broccoli, and we'll make them 2 or 3 weeks in a row, totally different ways. So we'll take sweet potatoes and make a breakfast bowl. And then the next week, we'll turn it into a broccoli cheddar soup with sweet potatoes as the base. And then the next week, we'll do black bean enchiladas with sweet potatoes. So eventually, they'll find something they like with sweet potatoes. And then they'll say, oh, I didn't know I could do all these things with sweet potatoes. It's the same thing with broccoli, with kale. Beyond trying it just once, making 2 or 3 different recipes that taste totally different is helpful because we may not like it the first way that we try it, but when we realize how versatile it is, often we'll find something or some way that we like it. If starting with enchiladas, like I love Mexican food. So if I were to start with a sweet potato black bean enchilada, I would just love it. I would just love sweet potatoes because I love enchiladas. And you've got all the Mexican seasonings in there. So it doesn't even taste like sweet potatoes. So this is how we get creative. These are the types of things that I do in my classes because I want the students to try things a number of different ways.
It's actually really smart because now you can take any food and literally make anything with it. Like my mom, she makes jackfruit, canned jackfruit, but it tastes like chicken. And like people might not like jackfruit, just don't tell them it's jackfruit, and all of a sudden they have a new favorite food. And so that, like I think that's so cool how you can mask food to be so many different things, especially healthy food.
Yeah. Yeah. We can hide those healthy foods into other things. If there's a vegetable that you don't really like, we can always put it into a quiche. If you like eggs, then we can put it into a quiche and you really don't pay much attention to the vegetable being there because you're enjoying the quiche. You can put it into a pot of soup, you can put it into a juice or a smoothie. So we just get creative, but we need to get those fruits and vegetables because we have to get the nutrients.
Yep, and you're going to hear that a lot this interview, nutrients, because that is what we're here. That's the goal of any of this is to put more nutrients in your body, in turn making every single moment of your life so much better. And Miss Jendza, let's talk about meal prep more specifically. Uh, let's take a guy named John. He's a teen. He's 13. He's goes to school every day. Uh, what would you say is your if you're working with him as your as his health coach? What would you help him with first in helping with meal prep?
Well, for meal prep, I first start with some breakfast ideas. So breakfast is not necessarily the most important meal of the day. I just want to say that. Breakfast means break fast. Our body detoxifies overnight. And so when we break our fast, we stop the detoxification cycle. So I encourage people not, if your schedule allows it, don't eat until you're hungry in the morning. And everybody is different. Some people are hungry at 8, 9, 10. Some people aren't hungry until noon. But when it comes to meal prep, we could prepare something like overnight oats, which I would recommend sprouted oats. That's one of my lessons is about sprouting because sprouted nut seeds and grains are how we're supposed to, all of our nut seeds and grains are supposed to be sprouted. That was the traditional way that we prepared our food to break down the enzyme inhibitor and make it easier to digest. So we can do sprouted oats, like overnight oats in the refrigerator in little mason jars. We could do chia seed pudding. We can do sweet potato bowls. Any of those things can be meal prepped on the weekend and will last all week. And then you just grab one of those jars or those containers and you can eat it on the go. We also bake our own waffles in class so that you can grab your own waffles will always be healthier than what you get at the grocery store. So we can prep our own waffles. And then we can prep veggie rolls. Veggie rolls with rice paper are a lot of fun. We take rice paper, roll up our veggies in them, and then we refrigerate those and we can make a number of different sauces like an orange ginger sauce because ginger is so good for you. An orange ginger sauce has anti-inflammatory properties and vitamin C. So you can take your veggie rolls and you can eat them on the go. There's yes, I would highly recommend all of my students to start meal prepping at a young age. Become responsible for what you eat throughout the week. Don't wait for somebody else. There are simple things that even at your age and younger can get in the kitchen and make for themselves.
I'm definitely gonna try those veggie rolls idea with the orange ginger sauce. Was it? I'm definitely gonna try that out. That sounds amazing. And meal prep, I've here for me, I started meal prepping every single moment, or at least eating. One, it's so much more delicious than just grabbing leftovers or microwaving something. And two, it feels you feel fulfilled that you're not just like having to grab something because you're out of time, or you feel like you feel fulfilled that you're eating this nice prepared meal.
Yeah. Yeah, when you take responsibility for your health, you enjoy it so much more. When you create it and it's your creation, that's what I find with the kids in my classes. They'll try all kinds of new things because it's their own creation. And that's so much better than eating something at the school or from a concession stand.
Now, I'm going to take actually a real person. His name is Luke. He's a friend of mine. He's 16 from the UK and he is pretty busy. He's part of a startup, he's part of a business that I run with him. And so he's always on the go. He eats just a bowl of cereal in the morning. His lunches, I think, are just sandwiches. And in general, his lifestyle is pretty good, but he does not. always eat the best foods. He doesn't meal prep. So take him for an example. First of all, speaking directly to him, why does he need to start doing these things to better his food choices?
Yeah, so the first thing I would say is sustained energy and mental clarity. So he's building a business and he's building his body. He's got cells that are replicating. Every single day we have cells that are replicating. So what we put into our body today produces the cells of tomorrow. In place of a cereal for breakfast, which most cereals are devoid of nutrients, we can make a good paleo granola as long as he doesn't have a nut allergy. A good paleo granola will have nuts and coconut and possibly like almond butter. So it'll be packed with nutrients plus fiber and fat. Most cereals are not only devoid of nutrients, but they're just too high in carbohydrate. And now you're growing, he's active. Um, Carbohydrates are not bad, but we need to have protein and fat and not too many carbohydrates. So, what happens with the carbohydrates? So, by the time we have cereal and then we have a sandwich for lunch, um, if that sandwich has bread involved, then what happens is our blood sugar goes up and then our blood sugar comes down, and then our blood sugar goes up, our blood sugar comes down. Every time our blood sugar comes down, we're hungry again. So we end up like this. So, why you're hearing so much about keto is because the pendulum had to swing the other way. We've been too heavy in carbohydrates in the Western world, and now we're having to swing the other way. And not that I'm recommending keto, what I'm recommending though is to keep your blood sugar more steady. So, something like nuts and seeds, they keep your blood sugar more steady than grains. And when we eat things that are low glycemic index, not only do we not get interrupted with those hunger pains every 2 hours because you're full a lot longer, but it actually helps our brain. So our brain needs fat. And if we're eating things that are devoid of fat, which most of our like breakfast cereals and things are, they're mostly very heavy in carbohydrate. They don't have the healthy fats or the proteins. This is where we then don't have the mental clarity that we could have. So if we want to be able to think clearly and build a company, we can look at Dave Asprey from Bulletproof. And, he puts fat, which I started to do several years ago, either ghee or coconut oil or coconut fat into my coffee because we took all that fat away as a society for about 30 years. And it's taking a toll on our mental clarity. So we need to have that fat. So something I would recommend for Luke would be like a chia seed pudding in the morning because you can add healthy fat to that. You've got protein, you've got fiber, and you still have carbohydrates. Even a good overnight sprouted oats. Um, and then for lunch, I would say something more like the veggie rolls, even if they do have the rice paper wraps, then they don't have gluten. But we want more veggies, and then definitely some protein and fat in there.
Yeah, I mean, on the keto part specifically, I was at the grocery store yesterday, two different grocery stores, and one of them, we walked in, there's an entire aisle of just keto things. We go to the other one, it's the same thing. Like, there's so much keto options out there. I know there's a lot of other diets, Mediterranean diets. There's more of what are other diets? But there's a bunch of different diets out there, all with different objectives. What's your number one go-to recommendation in terms of diets to kind of base your food choices around?
Yeah, so there's Mediterranean paleo, keto, whole 30, and then you've got vegan, vegetarian, and then the opposite extreme is carnivore. So there's a number of different variations, and I know many people will debate what's the best. The best is what's best for you. So I start with just taking everybody off of processed foods. Let's get back in the kitchen and make real foods. And then we swap things out and see how we feel. So we take gluten away, we take grains away, we take dairy away, and then we see how we feel. But I teach you how to replace all of those things so that you have options to go to. Ultimately, I guess I would say I lean a little more whole 30 or paleo. So in Paleolithic times, when we were hunters and gatherers, we had to go hunt for our food. We didn't roll out of bed and open up a package. There was a little more work involved. And so there's a lot to be said for us, not just gathering our own food, but preparing our food. It's really a sign and a symbol of taking care of oneself to prepare your food, but it takes time. And we eat more because we don't take that time. So we're eating out of convenience and we don't realize that we're eating more than what we need. If we slow down and prepare our food, we realize we don't need as much food as we think we do. But Paleolithic just says that what would have been here when we were hunters and gatherers? There weren't any refined grains or sugar or pasteurized dairy. There's a lot of information on raw dairy versus pasteurized dairy. We need the enzymes. The reason that we have all this lactose intolerance is probably because we're killing the lactase. So we just have to look at all the processed foods and start by removing those.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Just kind of all going back to the roots, um, eating foods that are close to the ground, eating foods that are naturally grown, organic foods. And now, Miss Jendza, my last major question, and then we have a rapid fire round. If you could go back 30 years or however long when you started your career in the corporate world and tell yourself one thing about food, health, lifestyle, what would you have told yourself?
Well, I would have prioritized cooking and preparing my own food for sure. I put that second to building a career. And I thought it was okay to eat things out of boxes and bags and packages and cans. And we had all of this newfound frozen foods. And I'm probably the first generation, right? Because my mom stayed home and my mom cooked. And so I was the first generation in my family to go to work and try to raise my kids while working full time. And I would say to myself, and I often think that if there's one thing I did differently, I would not work as much and I would have been home more and I would have cooked and baked more when my kids were younger. I didn't turn things around for my health until my kids were in middle school.
I was raised with a mom, same thing, a very hardworking mom. Now she stays home with us and she works on her own business, which is also a husband business. And so I can definitely understand firsthand from another point of view. Now let's get into our food themed rapid fire questions. First of all, what food seems healthy but really isn't?
Oh gosh, there's probably a lot of them, but I would say whole grains. I think people are confused about what is a whole grain, and the marketing messages are that whole grains are good for you, and they're not good for a lot of people.
What food seems unhealthy but is actually pretty good for you?
Seems unhealthy. Um, Probably coconut. I would say anything coconut oil, coconut fat, because it was demonized in the media for years, but it's actually pretty good for you, really good for the brain. It's good, healthy fat.
Have you ever had a cheat day?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely, Ben. I had Ben and Jerry's dairy free caramel brittle ice cream last week.
What about if you had to get one food that you would consider pretty unhealthy and you could eat it as much as you want and you wouldn't feel any of the bad side effects of it? Which food would you bring back?
Corn chips. I love corn chips and I love Mexican food. And corn has just been so genetically modified that I keep it to a minimum.
It's the single worst thing you can put in your body.
Right now, I would say wheat or corn, and both of them, and they're kind of tied because they both test high for glyphosate. Corn is all genetically modified. But in wheat products, they're using ADA, which is a plasticizer, and they're using bromine as an anti-caking agent. And so it makes those really bad for our body.
What classic breakfast, dinner, and lunch dishes, name two or three that people eat quite often are actually terrible for you?
Well, I love pancakes and waffles. Um, and I would say, so one, if they're made with wheat, you're getting all of the wheat, the glyphosate, the ADA, and the bromine, and then it's syrup. We we kind of forgot what maple syrup is, and a lot of the things in the grocery store in those plastic bottles, they're not maple syrup. They're high fructose corn syrup with caramel coloring and maple flavoring. So high fructose corn syrup is more addictive than cocaine. It is also very high in aluminum or heavy metals. And then caramel coloring is a chemical and maple flavoring is a chemical. So that is a whole bottle of chemicals. So I would say that's probably one of the most toxic things that people don't realize they are consuming.
Pancakes and waffles. Wow. I should stop eating those as often.
Well, just make sure you make them yourself. That's why we make those in my very first class. And then use real maple syrup. Real maple syrup comes from trees and has minerals in it. But what we're finding in the grocery store, those most popular name brands, are not maple syrup.
If you're out and about and you have to go eat something quickly, fast food, which of the following are you choosing? Subway, Chipotle, or Sweet Green?
What was the third one?
Sweet Green? Do you have a Sweet Green or and a salad shop like Chop Stop or
Okay, so I would probably go with that one. I don't have one of those by me. Or I would probably do Chipotle with, rice. I would build a bowl from Chipotle if I had to get something while I'm out and about.
now? Our last question, super, 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 super important. It's probably the most important question of this entire interview. What's your favorite food?
Mexican food. I love everything Mexican food. Well, my new favorite is the black bean sweet potato enchiladas. They are so yummy and so healthy. They still have corn tortillas. I love corn. Um, that would probably be my new favorite dish. It was always nachos, but I try not to eat so much cheese anymore.
Perfect. That about sums up this interview. Thank you so much, Miss Jendza, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, Ben. This is such an important topic, so I'm super grateful to have this conversation with you. It really is my passion to help kids. I don't want to call you a kid, but young adults, especially those of you building businesses. Oh, more power to you. So, yeah, keep your diet clean, prioritize your health, and build those businesses. You guys got a lot of problems to solve in the world. I know you can do it.
Thank you so much, Miss Jendza. This was amazing, and I can't wait for everyone to listen.